Hi, this is Mayor Charlie Hales from Portland, Oregon, saying hello to my friends in Melbourne. I think Portland and Melbourne have some similar challenges, and that is, how do you guide your city into the future that you want? One of the challenges that we faced here was, do we keep trying to serve a growing city with highways, or do we make a turn towards transit and bicycles and pedestrian movement as a more urban choice? And that was a big controversy here, and as I understand from talking with Councilmember Aaron Wood, it's a big controversy now for you as well. I think the lesson of Portland and Vancouver, BC, and a few other cities on the west coast of North America is you can make that turn. You can become a more livable, economically viable city for the new era by turning away from highways and towards those other transportation choices. Portland and cities in Oregon, as well as cities in Germany and a few other countries, have the benefit of a planning tool called an urban growth boundary. And it says, this is the urban area inside of this line. Outside of that line is natural resource land, farm, forest, parkland. And that distinction is very important. One, it saves the real farmland, and there's not enough of that. Two, it forces us to think about efficiency and livability in a manageable urban area rather than always be chasing the next development and figuring out how to serve it. Portland now has a brand that's known among creative class migrants who are moving here and known among people that are paying attention to the new economy. And that is, our quality of life is based in part on the infrastructure choices that we've made. We have systematically built a light rail system that's now expanding further. We're building a new bridge across the Willamette River that will carry light rail, streetcars, pedestrians, bicycles, buses, and no private automobiles. We're expanding that light rail line from that bridge several miles south to our adjacent suburbs in Milwaukee, Oregon. So we keep building out a transit system that we've been working on for 30 years. We've added back urban trams, we call them streetcars in the US, inside of the urban core to allow people to make short trips around the city without having to take their car out of a parking garage or catch a taxi. We have been making Portland more bicycle friendly, so we now have a significant percentage of downtown commuters arriving in the bike in weather that's not really our best strength as a city. So we have made Portland a distinctive place thanks to those infrastructure investments and the policies that support them. We call 20-minute neighborhoods what our parents called Main Street, and that is, we're rebuilding deliberately the fabric that we had in the streetcar era. That is, there's a neighborhood Main Street. On that street, the buildings front not a parking lot, but the sidewalk. Inside of those buildings are neighborhood services that people need: grocery stores, hardware stores, hairdressers, restaurants, specialty shops, that you can walk to or reach on your bicycle, again, without using your automobile, so that many of the necessities of life, where you work perhaps, where you shop certainly, where you go out to dinner, are within a 20-minute trip from your home by means other than a car. That's a deliberate pattern that we're trying to reinforce where it already exists and create where it does not yet exist in the more suburban parts of our city. Placemaking is deciding what kind of urban environment you want to live in, and then having policies, regulations, and projects that get you there. So you can be a passive regulator as a city and say, here's our building code, good luck with that. Or you can be a little more activist as a regulator and say, we're looking for this level of design. We want buildings that in their first 30 feet of height really respect the sidewalk and have awnings and protection from sun or rain, that have clear glass windows so people can see inside. Use high quality materials so the pedestrian walking down the street is not brutalized by the environment but welcomed into it. Those sound a little fuzzy or fluffy, but it makes a big difference to the quality of street life there, and it turns out to be much economically stronger as a neighborhood than it would be if it had generic development. We've put those kinds of ideas into practice now long enough that our local developers not only get it and go along with it, but they overperform. They do more than we ask in terms of design, in terms of storefront retail, because they've figured out that there is indeed a market for that kind of development, and people want to be in those kinds of urban places, the very kinds of urban places that Melbourne's trying to create with the Docklands redevelopment. So the Pearl District in Portland is a large-scale realization of those ideas: walkability, transit, density, livability at street level, that we think now is a model for the Docklands and a lot of other places that are trying to make good new urban neighborhoods out of redevelopment opportunity. The idea that the pedestrian is the first-class passenger is an organizing principle that then helps us make decisions about how to spend money and how to configure our streets. If the pedestrian is first class, then that he or she shouldn't have to push a button to cross the intersection. It should always have a walk signal. If the pedestrian is the first-class passenger, then the quality of life on that sidewalk is more important than the speed of traffic in the travel lane. If the pedestrian is the first-class passenger, then you want a regular rhythm of street trees down that street, awnings. You want interesting architecture to enliven that pedestrian experience. If you do all that, you create a message to your citizens who are moving around that you're not crazy to be on foot or on your bicycle or waiting for a bus or a tram, that actually that's a transportation choice that we support, and those turn out to be the most popular places to live, work, and shop. So now we have software companies moving to Portland saying, that's the kind of neighborhood that we want to locate in. Don't show me a suburban office park. Don't show me even a high-rise downtown tower. I want walkable urbanism, where they wouldn't necessarily say it this way, but what they're looking for is where the pedestrian is the first-class passenger. You know, we make some jokes about traffic engineers, that they're capable of re-education, but they have to be, sent to a special camp in order to get it. But traffic engineers are problem solvers. Traffic engineers, if they're told to solve a problem for livability and for transportation choice, are perfectly capable of that. But a lot of transportation engineers were trained to move cars and not think about the other issues. So I spent the last 10 years working literally elbow to elbow with engineers who were perfectly capable of making that paradigm shift from, oh, my job isn't just to move cars, my job is to support the economy and livability of this place by making all the modes of transportation viable. Engineers are problem solvers. If you tell them that that's the problem you want them to solve, create a place of transportation choice and safety for all travelers, engineers are excellent at finding solutions to that problem. I was tremendously heartened by the conversation at the C40 Conference because, one, it was an honor for Portland to be there. We're a relatively small city among some real giants in terms of size at that conference. But we've been a practice leader. We've put a lot of these ideas and philosophies into practice, and we've cut our carbon emissions by 30% overall per capita and 10% in real reduction, even though our population has grown. So we've walked our talk to a contribution to a better world. So I was proud to be there, but I was inspired to be there because there are mayors like Mayor Parks Tao in Johannesburg who have bigger challenges than I have. They have giant informal settlements, Some people would still call them slums, where people live in tin shacks without public utilities and are often unemployed. He says, Mayor Tao says, I want those people to live in good basic housing, and we're building it. We're putting a solar hot water heater on top. We're putting a bus rapid transit line down in the street in the valley below, and we're making sure they have access to trees and parks and community gardens so they live in a greener environment and can grow some of their own food. And here's the magic. He says, that's our equity strategy. It's also our environmental strategy. You don't get prosperous first and then go green. You get prosperous by being green as you progress. I think that's the true and right path to a better future. And he and other mayors at this conference articulated that very well, and I've brought it home, and I'll keep repeating that message right here in Portland. In the new economy, where talent is mobile and capital is mobile and information is everywhere, what matters is the quality of place. That's what any community has to sell. We're not going to win or lose economically by the cost of our electricity or the speed of our highways. We're going to win or lose economically by the quality of life at street level and the connection to nature that people come to Portland to experience. Young creative professionals move here and start businesses here and grow them here and keep them here because of that quality of life at street level. And again, that's good bones that our ancestors gave to us in the early design of the city, investment in the right things like transit and bike lanes, and not investing more in the wrong things like highways, that gets us to a place where now we're distinctive and more competitive in that world where economic activity has a choice about where it takes place. I wish you well in Melbourne, and I wish all of us well as we work together in communities around the world to face the big picture issues of climate change and demand for resources, and then the neighborhood issues of creating places that not only help solve that global problem, but give our fellow citizens better lives in a better future. I think we're doing that here in Portland. I'm proud of what we've done. I wish you well for your efforts in Melbourne, and anything we can do to support each other, I'll do with you. Thank you.